Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Kristi. Kristi is a really special person. I met her last summer in Montana at a sober summer camp retreat. And she is just a bright light. She has infectious energy, instantly likable, just a sweet Southern belle. She has been through a lot in her life. She got pregnant at 16 and married at 16, faced a lot of different challenges, special needs daughter, a lot of different things she had to overcome. She lost her father, just a lot. A lot of heavy challenges came her way. Ultimately, she did find sobriety and has just this beautiful light about her. I know you guys are going to love this episode. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Kristi to the podcast.
Hey.
I'm so excited that you're here. I have to tell everyone how me and you know each other.
Yeah.
So we met this summer at Sober Summer Camp. Was that your first year there?
That was my first year. Yeah, I loved
Okay.
it.
Okay. So me and Kristi are part of the same recovery group called Recovery Elevator. And every year in August, they do a flagship retreat. It's a 5-day retreat out in Montana. And we met and I remember, I think the first time I met you, we were sitting playing some game and you were sitting across from me and you had the cutest Southern accent. And I was like, I'm going to be friends with her.
Yes, it was that rainy day when the laser tag got postponed.
Postpone the laser tag. Yeah. That was probably for the best.
I wasn't going to be a part of that anyway, but
I know people were walking around like, are we supposed to beat each other? Is this supposed to be this competitive?
yeah.
You know? But at that retreat, one of our friends, we were just talking about our mutual friend, Chris Oyen. He did like these little 5-minute interviews and you were one of the interviews. And I heard just a little bit of your story. And I was like, man, I got to get her on my show one day. So here we are.
Great. I'm honored.
Yay. We're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote for your episode is anonymous, but very special to me. It goes, someone out there needs your story. Someone out there needs to see you succeed so that they know it's possible for them too. Be the change. What does that quote mean to you?
Absolutely love this quote. And quickly, I'll kind of tell you why. My mother, I have a long history of this addiction. So in the very beginning, when things started going south, my mom used to look at me all the time and say, baby girl, all of this is happening for a reason. And, back then I would roll my eyes and be like, she's lost her mind. There couldn't be any reason behind this. Fast forward 20 years, and there is a reason. My story is important. And I think I do have a purpose. Story is, I feel like it's my obligation to give back because when I first really started digging in to get sober, listening to podcasts like these and hearing other people's story is what made me sit at home and think, you can do this, they can do this. So I think sharing my story is for the next Kristi or the next Megan so that somebody somewhere can know, like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally track with what you're saying. I got sober listening to sober podcasts too. Recovery Elevator was my first sober podcast that I clung to and listened religiously to every episode. After I finished with one season, I'd go back and listen to the others.
Yeah.
And, they're essentially, that is, this quote is why I do the podcast that I do now. To give stories of hope because it literally can be the foundation or the turning point for someone who's going through something really hard. And it doesn't even have to be addiction. It can be some other type of mental health disorder, which we showcase all of those different ones. But I absolutely love the end of the quote, be the change. That to
Yes.
me stuck out. Yeah, because we have the power within us to either positively influence the environment around us or negatively. And
Yeah.
I think there's so much to be said about a positive attitude and how sometimes it's work. Sometimes you don't want to have a positive attitude,
Yeah,
but it
for
can really
sure.
be transformative. So I love this quote too. But we're so excited to hear your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Okay. I'll really just start when, like, my first introduction to alcohol. I was probably around 14, just your typical teenage group of friends, and on the weekends, bored, digging into somebody's parents' liquor cabinet. I'm not one of those that, you hear stories and people are like, oh, I knew from the first drink that I had a problem. I didn't. I think looking back, I knew that I didn't have a stopping point, but I didn't recognize for a while that, it didn't cause me any problems until 2 years later when I was 16. I ended up the one person out of my group that got pregnant. So, I had a choice to make. Was I going to try to go back and start my junior year pregnant? And this was 35 years ago. And that it's accepted now. Or it's more normal. It was not normal back then. So I chose to quit school and do the exact opposite of what my parents suggested. Got married. I married my daughter's father at 16. Moved out on my own, and I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was a child. So because I did live on my own, I had free range to do whatever. And after she was born, I was introduced to, marijuana, cocaine. I drank as much as I could, and it quickly became a problem. He and I had a very physically abusive relationship, and I got out of that one very early, but I think my relationship with him caused me to just move towards like physical abuse in relationships. And so there were a string of those, and along with those relationships, it was heavy, heavy amounts of drinking and drugs and partying and making a lot of really bad decisions. Probably when I was probably around 25, and I actually found a guy that seemed to be the one. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't an alcoholic. What I did not know is that he was addicted to opiates. And unfortunately, I got involved with that. So towards the end of my 20s, I was spiraling. It was bad. Needed rehab, and we didn't want it. And something happened that really, really put me in a dark place. My parents were divorced when I was very, very young. So I was blessed with, two sets of parents, step parents, parents. I had a huge family. Loved it. My dad and I were very close. And he was going through a lot of struggles in his life, had a lot of mental health issues that he did not ever address because, back then I'm 51. And so I think at my age and the way I was brought up and he was brought up, like men didn't get help. Men didn't cry. They didn't show emotions. And long story short, what ended up happening, I was at work one day and I got a phone call from him. And an hour and a half later, he shot himself while I was on the phone with him. So yeah, I was already in the throes of a massive addiction, and I plummeted. And I spun out really, really hard. But, I look back now and I'm like, it was something needed to happen to force me to go get some help. And so a couple of years after he passed away, I went down to South Georgia. I went down to Jackson, Georgia, and I spent 8.5 months, willingly spent 8.5 months. It was a Christian discipleship program is what it technically was for women with drug issues. That changed the trajectory of my life for a while. I didn't necessarily believe everything they were saying, but I took what I could from it and left what I didn't believe. But I was able to rebuild my life, and I got a job, and I thought about going to school, and I knew I wanted to do hair. So I started apprenticing for hair, and everything just came together. And I'm like, I've got this beat. Like, I'm good. I was never willing to give up alcohol though, because, that wasn't my thing. Opiates were my thing. Drugs were my thing. And I lasted a good 20 years, 15 years before it really got a hold of me. I went right back into getting in shitty relationships. And I think just because of what happened to me as a teenager and everything with my dad and all the terrible relationships, I did not believe that I really deserved anything better than that. And so I just kept on down that road. I was finally able to get out of that cycle of being in these toxic relationships that I was subjecting myself to. And I was just really focused on me. I worked out all the time. I was in the gym 4 days a week. I was just living my best life. But part of living my best life was on the weekends. I was partying and I was drinking, and I was able to keep control of it. But I was never one that could handle a hangover very well. Like, I was a total pansy. I was not going to power through it and try to eat some food or whatever and drink a bunch of water. I would just keep drinking through it. And then when COVID hit, my drinking went from mainly on the weekends to, at some points, me and my friends were Marco Poloing each other, and it was a joke because we were cracking open bottles of wine at 10 a.m. Because, what else are you going to do? And, I wouldn't I hate to blame it on COVID, but I really feel like that is what made me deep dive into, just drinking every single day. The gyms were closed, so I got out of working out and everything. I noticed I was gaining some weight because I was drinking like 2 and 3 bottles of wine a day, every day. So I had the brilliant idea to let's stop drinking wine and let's switch to vodka because, that has less calories, supposedly. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know now that it was a terrible, terrible idea. Anyway, I think about probably 6 months later, I started noticing I was getting up in the morning and my hands were shaking and I couldn't control. And I'm a hairstylist. Like, you don't want to go to your hairstylist and her hands are shaking. I'm sure it's really scary. So then every now and then I would start taking a sip in the mornings to kind of calm things down. And it got bad. So in March of 2021, I drove myself to the emergency room. I called my boyfriend at the time and my mom, and I was like, I have to get some help. I just need to get dried out. I don't need any help. I just need to dry out. And that led to this sounds like an exaggeration, but I ended up in and out of detox centers every 2 to 3 weeks for the rest of that year until October of that year. So, like 7 months. It was terrible. But what it ended up taking was for me to lose my job. I was about to get kicked out of my rental house. My boyfriend he's still my partner. God love him. He has stuck with me, but he was looking at me going, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And so one of my best friends found a rehab for me again down in South Georgia. It must be my sweet spot, like 3 to 4 hours away from me. But I went and I spent the 30 days and, slowly but surely, I just started getting it back together. I didn't quit drinking, but I was having little, spurts. I was having 3 months here and then something would happen. My dog died. I went on a bender, but at least I was not in and out of the detox centers. And it was around Christmas. It was in December of 2023. And my mom, I'm 51, and my mother still tracks my location on my phone, which I'm fine with. But she sent me a text one night after work, and and my mother doesn't cuss, and it just says, "Where in the hell are you?" And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the parking lot of a liquor store. And, when I got to her house that night because she was keeping my daughter, she just said, are we going to do this for the rest of our lives? Like, is this how we all have to live? It's just, when is Kristi going to mess up again? And I don't know, just that simple conversation with her, something clicked. And I went home and I did drink what I bought, but that was the last time I drank because I just thought it's easy to sit back and say, like, I'm doing this to myself. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not affecting anyone. And that's just not true. Every member of my family has been affected by this. I have a huge family. I have aunts that are white mothers and uncles that are white fathers, and it affected all of them. All of them were having to pitch in and try to help me piece Kristi back together. And so that was December of 2023, and I had already joined Cafe RE, but I was one of those that just kind of lurked in the background. I never participated, and I thought, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this. I was about to turn 50. And I just refused. I'm not going to spend another decade of my life like this. And so I jumped in and I jumped in head first. And I, I haven't looked back so far.
Wow. No, I love it so much. I can see the glow and the life in you. I didn't know you, years ago when you were in active addiction, but I know you now and you have such a bright light. Like, you just have an infectious energy about you. And
Thank you.
to think that it was dulled for those years breaks my heart, and I'm just proud of you to be able to come through what you came through.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have some follow-up questions for you.
Okay.
When you're looking back in those years that you were drinking and even when you were younger and the drug use, what was your biggest fear about getting sober?
I think my biggest fear, which one of them was the typical one, like I'm never going to have fun again. But I was afraid that I was going to lose all of my relationships. And I say that because my partner still drinks. I can think of two of my girlfriends that don't drink. I'm the only one that doesn't drink. And I'd always heard that, you have to change everything. And I was willing to do that. But as it turns out, I have not, for me personally, I have not had to. I know that some people can't be around it. I've just been able to set some very strong boundaries. Everybody knows about them. And when it's time for me to remove myself from an uncomfortable situation, I don't apologize for doing that. Yeah, I think just losing my people, that was what I was most scared of.
Yeah. I felt very similar as you. And also, like you, most of my circle drinks as well. And it's become something, like you just said, creating boundaries around it. I know at 10 p.m., I need to excuse myself because there's
Mhm.
not really fun for me after that hour. And just setting the boundaries of, there are some people that were in my circle that still tried to push alcohol on me. Oh, you can have one. Don't be a Debbie Downer. And I had to remove myself from those friendships because I don't think they understood the severity of maybe my situation or how firm I wanted these boundaries to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought I would say this, but I'm kind of grateful that it went as dark as it did for me because all of my friends, all of my family saw it. So I have not had one person in these last 2 years ever offer. They just know, like it is off the table.
Yeah. That's awesome that they rally
Yeah.
around you like that. I love that. So, a lot of people will struggle in that first year because of how they manage their stress. So, prior, they used alcohol or whatever substance to numb out to not deal with their stress. So, how have you learned in a healthy way manage your stress?
One thing, and I'm still working on this. I have to ask for help. I have a lot on my plate. I did not mention this earlier, but my daughter, she'll be 35 in a couple weeks, but she is severely special needs. So I had to go to her dad and say, like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot, you're going to have to be the full-time parent. And now it's even like I'm in school also. Decided at 50 to go to college. And if I need help cleaning the house, I need to tell my partner, like, help me. I can't do everything at one time. That's been a big thing. But another thing that has been a complete game changer for me is meditation. And it's something that I'm religious about. The one thing it has taught me how to regulate my emotions and how to, in the moment, I can take a second and I can take myself from 100, maybe not to zero, but like to 20 in a few seconds. And I don't think I realized how much it was working until I've had people notice, like, you were just upset a while ago. Like, are you okay? Because you seem good. I'm like, no, I'm good. No, but that's been such a big thing for me. That I'm actually looking into. I want to take some courses to be a meditation facilitator. I'm in school for psychology, and so I'm thinking if I can combine those two, that would be beautiful.
That's awesome. Before we
Yeah.
jumped on, we were talking about some of the meditations and the breath work that we had done at our retreat in Bozeman. And that was my fourth time doing breath work. But you had mentioned it was your very first time. And breath work is a type of guided breathing. It's a really deep, long meditation. I mean, they can be anywhere from 1 to 2, maybe even 3 hours. And the one we do in Bozeman is a really long one. And you said you had an extreme experience. Can you kind of share your experience with the breath work?
Yeah, I was telling a couple of people recently, um, it was probably the most beautiful and feral thing I've ever experienced in my life. And that sounds weird. I know it doesn't sound weird to you because you experienced it, but during that breath work, and I may cry during this because I'm one of those, I'm a crier, but I realized because of all the trauma and all the abuse that I've been through, I'm always holding my breath. Like, when's the next thing going to happen? When's the next shoe going to drop? And I think for the first time in a long time, I just let myself feel whatever came. And my body was sore the next day. I think if I started describing it really, it would sound like I was having some kind of seizure or something. But it was just it was the best emotional release I've ever, I walked away from it feeling lighter, not just emotionally, but really physically. It was a crazy, and I mean crazy in a good way, experience. So yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the retreat is after our breathwork session, some people will share their experience. And I love listening to everyone's experience because what you're essentially doing is going deep into the subconscious where the darkness is, but it's actually where 90% of our decisions and our behaviors come from is the subconscious mind. So I love hearing people have big breakthroughs. The first time I did it, I didn't know what I was doing. And I think I just got to the phase where you just laugh the whole time because of the hyperventilation. And then the second time I had a deep one. The third one, so last year I was really going through it a lot in my life, and I had an extremely powerful one like you did. And I
Yeah.
felt like energetically connected to my ancestors, to the trees. I felt like I could move the leaves on the trees with my hands. And I had this very powerful moment where I ran out. I ran out of the breathwork session and fell to my knees. And I'm like you, hold my breath and keep my emotions in. And I just started hysterically crying. One of our mutual friends, Natasha
Yeah.
do you know who I'm talking about from Recovery Elevator? She's like this tough jujitsu MMA fighter girl.
Mhm.
And she ran out after me and she was like, "You finally did it. You let go. You let
I
go."
love that.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, and I don't really know how to put it into words. You described it in one of your episodes, and I was like, that's exactly what came to me. It's like that gave me the awareness that there's all kinds of things that's going to happen. There are all kind of storms and issues and traumatic stuff that's going to happen, but I have the ability within me at all times to just breathe through it. Just let the things come, let the things happen. That doesn't have to completely disrupt my entire life just because, a storm has passed through. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like dig your feet in and let the storm
Yeah.
pass. Dig your feet in and breathe.
Yes.
Another thing that's been really helpful, because breathwork, I really feel like it with a moderator is a little more effective, but ways you can do it on your own is just even boxed breathing. So, like, breathe
Yes.
in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. That has helped me in some recently like stressful situations.
Yeah. That's another yeah, I mean, just doing that, you can take your stress level down. I have an issue with anger, and, I mean, even just, like, road rage, and I'm constantly finding myself like, "You just need to take a few breaths," and it works, and I think a lot of people are a little critical of it because it sounds very woo-woo. That's a big word you hear now that people roll their eyes out, like, "Guys, y'all are missing out if you're not doing
Mhm.
this."
Yeah. Yeah. Are you a fan of Huberman? Do you listen to his podcast at all? Yeah. Have you ever heard him talk about I think he calls it the physiological sigh?
No.
So it's his way of breath work, but it's where you take a big deep breath in and then you breathe again on top of that and then you breathe out for 6. And essentially what you're doing is switching from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic. So going from fight or flight to rest and digest.
Well, I'll have to look at that then.
Yeah, that one's been helpful too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a few more questions about your story. So, what's been the most positive thing that's happened to you in these last almost 2 years?
So much has opened up for me. Like, finally, for the first time, truly 100%, I believe in myself. I have started my life over so many times. It dug myself out of many a hole, but I'm still here and I'm resilient. And it just seems like the whole world has opened up. If I'm interested in something, I can go after it. This has been so, so difficult. This is one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. And if I can get through this, like I can truly do anything. So I think it's just, I believe in myself finally.
You have that agency back over your life.
Hmm.
Are you a big milestone girl? Like you're about to hit 2 years. Or do you do a big thing for your milestones?
I did not do anything last year, but this year, obviously, I've got a couple of tattoos. And I think I'm going to get a tattoo for it. I already know what I'm going to get. I just got to make the appointment.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So I have a sober tattoo, and some people in the world of recovery look down upon it, but they warn you about it, whatever. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do it. But I got my sober date and a lightning bolt because that has a lot of significance in my life on my side. What are you thinking about getting?
I'm going to get a traditional burning ship.
Okay, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think so.
Burn the
Well,
ships.
and unlike you, the first recovery podcast I ever listened to was Recovery Elevator. And so Paul was constantly mentioning like burning the ships, burning the ships. And I started looking up the meaning for it. I'm like, that's what I'm getting. I think I'm going to do it. If you have it on your body, like there's no going back from that, right?
So true. I wanted to ask you, how has your life changed over these last 2 years?
I mean, everything has changed. All of my relationships have changed. Like I said, I'm in school for the first time. I'm a straight A student. My relationship at home, my partner and I are great. Like I believed enough that like I finally deserved to be loved fully. and exactly how I am. And he does that. And I mean, we are polar opposites. We don't look alike, we don't act alike, and it works. My relationships with my family, all of that has been mended, and it never would have happened. I was to the point 2 years ago, I was door dashing vodka at 9 a.m. before I went to work. I just wake up every day and I'm so, so grateful. I never have a problem jotting things down on a gratitude list because I'm grateful for it all. It's not one of my days would be possible if I had not done it. Not one. So, I mean, it, I wish I had a more mystical answer for you, but it's literally everything.
That's a perfect answer, honestly. So you recover out loud, and I love that. When did you make that decision to be a person that talks about sobriety publicly?
Well, and I laugh about this sometimes in some of the chats. I was drunk out loud. Everybody in my town knew. And it took a while for those people to be like, "What do you mean you're not drinking? Kristi's not drinking?" So it wasn't difficult for me to flip that because people saw how bad I got. But my mom's words, they ring in my ear all the time. And I think my mom just saying like, "You have a purpose. All of this is happening for a reason." And I finally got to a point, I guess, when I was in rehab, and I'm like, is my purpose to help other people? And I think it is. I mean, I know it is. That's why I'm in school to do what I do. That's why I've got a plan.
What are your goals? You're going to be, graduating with this degree and the meditation part. I mean, I can see so many opportunities for you. Number one, because if I ever came to you as a client and I was going through my own thing, knowing you had gone through it yourself, am going to instantly trust you, But what are your goals with the school and everything that you're working on?
I'm the same as you. Like, I've been in and out of therapy probably since I was 18, just at different points in my life. And I've had two therapists in all those times. And it was the same situation. Like, I could identify with them because they would share not too much, but they let it be known that they knew where I was coming from. My spiritual mentor said, "What you're wanting to do is a holistic form of psychology." I feel like we all need some tools that instead of like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to see my therapist. No, we need to have some stuff like in our pocket right now in a moment to be able to regulate or to talk yourself down off of a ledge. So I don't really know what that would look like, but I would love to at some point be invited to like some women's retreats, something like that. I think that would be great. So I guess maybe if I have a dream or a goal in all of this, that might be one of them.
Yeah, I love that. I can totally see you doing that.
Uh,
People, you're instantly likable too, and as women in a group setting, you need that quality,
yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about your relationship because when someone gets sober in a relationship, that can be a really good thing, or it can make the relationship a little more dicey, a little more difficult. How has your relationship changed with your boyfriend?
I'm not going to lie. It's been tough. I think it's probably been tough on both of us. He still drinks. I've noticed that his drinking has really slacked off. And he's actually just said to me recently, I don't say anything about his drinking, but when I did really notice, like it's been days since I've seen him with a beer. And so I thought, well, it may be helpful to acknowledge, that I see it, I notice it, and I'm proud of him. And he just said, I think I eventually want to cut that out. But in the beginning, I said earlier that I've had to put some really strong boundaries up. And one of those is about in some of our group settings. And he just knows. I told him from the beginning, like, I love you and I love all of these people, but if I start feeling uncomfortable, I am not going to sit around. I'm not going to stay. If we are out somewhere, I'm leaving. If we're at our house, I go upstairs, I read a book, and everybody knows and nobody questions it. And even if they did, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I have to protect me. And he loves me enough to where he respects that. But it was tough. There was a little time there in the beginning to where I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Like we have alcohol in the house all the time. And I can only speak for myself because again, I know that a lot of people just cannot do that. Every now and then I think about it, I'm like, I'm kind of a badass because there's a whole stocked liquor cabinet downstairs and I don't even think about it. I don't know. It's a badass move for me, and that's what I have to keep telling myself.
It's like you're in exposure therapy. Like, that's exposure therapy,
Yes.
you know?
That is it. Yes, that's exactly what it is. But he has stuck with me through all of it when it got the ugliest, so I love him. He loves me for exactly who I am. And he's just I'm sure sometimes he thinks like I have no idea what kind of ride she's taking me on, but he's in it.
Committed. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said about how opposites attract. I agree. My husband and I, we have very similar interests, but we're very different in a lot of ways. Like, I'm very hyper and he's very calm, and I'm a morning person and he's a night person. And I'm very
Yeah.
much like extroverted and he's very introverted. I think there's the balance, the yin and the yang of it all is it works.
Yeah, I do tell people all the time, like, he definitely is my balance. And I need it because I am a very emotionally driven person, and I feel like sometimes not as much anymore, but I can go from 100 to 0 quickly. So, yeah, I need somebody to keep me grounded a little bit.
Yeah, same girl, same.
Yeah.
So I love when listeners get practical advice from our guests. So, that first year, any advice that you would give to someone who's, just coming into recovery or maybe even just sober curious? I know community was really important to you. What other things kind of give us that take?
I think, honestly, one of my biggest pieces of advice would be to not to put too much on your plate. Because in the beginning, I was very involved. And I mean, I was on like 3 and 4 chats a day because I just had to be. But getting involved in a community, you get a lot of advice on like read this book or listen to this podcast or go for a run or join a gym. And I'm taking all these notes, these lists. And at some point, it's like, I can't do all of these things. I was getting overwhelmed. And then for some people, that makes you feel like maybe I'm not doing it right. And so my advice for people is to don't put too many balls in the air to juggle. Pick like 1 or 2 things, like dig into some recovery books or do start walking. You don't have to start training for a marathon, the first time, but do something, but keep it small and keep it simple. And then for me, I just started knowing like, okay, this is getting kind of stale, so it's time for me to switch it up. But like, I couldn't even read a book the first 6 months, so I had to pick some different things. So I just think for people to make a commitment to 1 or 2 simple things that you can do that don't overwhelm you, and just do those.
That's actually really good advice. I haven't heard that before, but you're right. It can be
Yeah.
overwhelming. And I think sometimes early sobriety can be glamorized in certain ways. And it's not that way for everyone, especially if you've left a little bit of a wreckage in your bottoms. Yeah, it's not always this pink cloud and everything is great. Sometimes it's cleaning up a lot of messes.
Yeah, and I mean, not everybody gets the pink cloud. I did not get a pink cloud. I mean, I may have had a little glimmer of one here and there, but it was rough. I think if people say you don't get that pink cloud, man, if you're trying to jam 50 different things into what you're trying to do, I just feel like you're almost setting yourself up for failure that
Yeah,
way.
I agree. You do Recovery Elevator, which is an awesome online group that has meetups. Do you do any other recovery group in your county or any other recovery work?
I do AA. I do have a sponsor, but she does not live in Rome, so I meet her on Zoom. There's actually one meeting that I haven't tried yet, but we don't have a lot to offer here. Recently, I'm really thinking I'm going to join another recovery community online. And it's Recovery 2.0. And it's more of like a spiritual aspect to it. And that's where I am in my recovery. So I think that will be helpful too. But man, I would love to get to a point to actually start an AA group in my town. That's actually another goal of mine, but I gotta get through the steps first, and they're hard.
They are hard. I think
Yeah.
that's a really awesome goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned books. You had read some books. What were some of your favorite recovery books that you read?
One of mine was and I guess it's in my, I call it a recovery book, but it's The Comfort Crisis.
I heard that one. I'm going to write that one down.
Yeah, and another one and this is more on the spiritual side, but The Untethered Soul.
Yeah, that's a great
Oh,
one.
God. Like, it's kind of on my list to go back and revisit. And another one and I read this throughout the year multiple times, and it was one of my group leaders introduced me to it when I was in detox, is the Four Agreements. And I think all of those books, it doesn't matter if you're not in recovery. They're so helpful. They're so insightful. And they just give you, especially the Four Agreements, that just gives you a good guideline for any decent human being to live.
I agree. That
Yeah.
was gifted to me last summer and loved
Yeah.
that. So I wanted to ask you about your spiritual journey because it seems to be super prevalent in your life. My spiritual relationship has taken off in sobriety. There's some theories, that when you drink alcohol, it's called spirits, right? That your soul leaves your body. And yeah, as you're drinking and you're kind of watching yourself from above, and there's a dark energy correlational with alcohol. That's why they call it spirit. So I wanted to ask you, how has your spirituality or your relationship with your higher power changed?
I didn't have one. I really didn't have one anymore. And I was brought up in church, but I that's exactly what ended up happening is that I was living in such a darkness. And I look back, even luckily there's not a lot of pictures around, but you can see the darkness in my eyes. If somebody is living in that spiritual darkness, you can't hide it. When you're just constantly numbing yourselves with whether it's drugs or alcohol, there's like this spiritual ceiling that you hit and you cannot bust through it if you're staying in that state of mind. And so as soon as I started getting clear-headed, I felt like my prayers were going somewhere. I felt like my meditations were going somewhere. It's kind of like I was mentioning earlier, to kind of dig into that a little deeper. I was brought up knowing that, like, if you're saved, like, God lives in your heart, but I never had a real knowing of it. Like, you feel it in your soul, you know that divine presence is in me. It is a part of me. It is a part of my DNA. The one that created the universe, it created me. And so I can tap into that at any second I want to. I don't have to wait until I'm in a gathering with people at all. That has been eye opening for me. It's such a relief to know that you're never by yourself. If the God that created the universe thought I was that important, that he needed to create me, I need to do something with my life. It's important.
Girl, you got me with that last part. That's because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Feeling that power, that divine power inside your heart, and that you were numbing out from for so long, and then when you dry out, sober up, and you feel that, oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're talking about. So beautiful. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I don't get emotional all the time, but you got me at that last part. Your story is really beautiful. It hit me when you gave the little tiny, Ajmuz Boosh short version in Bozeman, but definitely tonight. And I know your purpose on this earth is a big one, and I can't wait to see it play out. So we have made it to the lightning round of our show. I
Mhm.
ask the same 5 questions to each guest. We'll have new questions for season 2, which comes out in January. So the first question is, you're given 3 options. You have to pick one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
Definitely skydive. It's been on my bucket list for years.
Okay, I love it. There's actually one over in West Georgia that they have. Skydive
Well,
West Georgia.
I'm still looking for a friend that will go with me so I don't have to do it
Okay.
by myself.
I'll
So
be the friend. I'll do it. I'll do it with
do
you.
it. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
I can't pick a song, but I'm going to say classical music, particularly like piano and strings. That's my go
Okay.
to. Yeah.
It's so funny. I was on a call the other day and the music while they were waiting was this beautiful classical music and it put me in such a good mood, like peaceful. So when I
Yeah.
got off the call, I started streaming classical music on my Spotify all day.
I listen to it so much. At the end of the year, Spotify does the wrapped or whatever. My most played artist was Chopin. Yeah.
That's actually kind of badass though.
Yeah. I nerd out on it. It's nice.
That's awesome. Number 3, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Mary Poppins. I can't believe nobody said that.
It's a
It's
classic.
the best one. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Hadn't heard that one. You're the first one.
Yeah.
Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
Dogs. Absolutely dogs. My retirement plan will be to live on a farm and have all the dogs in Floyd County and be walking around with them barefoot.
I love this for you. I can see this. Number 5, last question. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom to me is really simple. It's waking up every day without that umbrella of darkness over me. It's finally not having to being chained to an addiction. It's free.
Yep. That's absolutely perfect answer. Thank you so much. I am so honored to have you on the show and just so excited to see the trajectory of your life.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yes. All right, girl. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye.